Well, welcome back. This is Bill Brandmeier. We're coming to the end of our time with you today. It's Tuesday. It's Youth Sports Day. We're talking about the impact that youth sports has on our community, how important sports are to young people. And we're going to finish off with an incredible, compelling conversation with two leaders in our city that have created opportunities for young girls to engage with sports really in really unique and special ways. I'm joined by Jessica Blublau from Win for KC. It's a part of the Kansas City Sports Commission Foundation. Win for KC has been a part of our lives for a long time. How many years, Jessica, have we been doing Win for KC? Like 35 years?
26.
Years. Yeah, and Gina Lichty with an amazing organization called Girls on the Run. This is the national nonprofit that has an incredible leader here in Kansas City. Thousands of girls run and learn life lessons through the love of running, the community that's built through engaging in a sport that is a little less competitive, but more camaraderie, more togetherness, more connection. So Gina Lichty from Girls on the Run. How you doing, Gina?
Great. Thanks so much for having me here today, Bill.
Well, that's great. I want to kick things off. Most of my conversations, we've talked a little bit about when we first heard about COVID, and back in early March when we started getting the sense of how this was going to impact our city. Jessica, you come from a unique perspective because you're kind of on the inside of our city's one of our biggest events of the year, the Big 12 basketball tournament. You guys were dealing with this pretty early on. Tell us about what it is that you thought about, and then how you kind of use the information that you had to guide Win for KC.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I've been doing events for 17 years, and I will say that was one of the wild and woolliest weeks in terms of, we spent a year and a half planning all of the stuff that we were going to do around the return of the Big 12 women's basketball tournament to Kansas City. So getting all the way up to the starting line, essentially, and then yanking the plug on that within hours of basically it starting was an interesting and fascinating experience. And I think a lot of the discussions, obviously we were taking some lead from the Big 12 on how they wanted to handle things, but we were also helping to lead those discussions in the sense of what is the right and safest thing for us to be doing as a city. And I think for us on the Win side, it was really a discussion about, we had basically 5 different events planned over the course of the tournament, one of which was 3,000 kids coming to the evening or the afternoon games on Friday to be able to watch and be a part of our reading and fitness program. And so it was just, how do we get the information, make the decisions, get the information disseminated out to everybody who needed to know what was happening. And I will be honest and say at first I was like, oh, this is just, it's just going to be a day or two, and then we'll be a blip on the radar. And, man, did that change in the course of 24 to 48 hours. So it was crazy, but I think at the end of the day, it was what do we have to do that's right and best for the community and the people who are potentially coming into our city. So, definitely learning experience.
Well, Gina, for you, it probably happened a little slower in terms of the uptake, how is this going to impact Girls on the Run, but obviously stay at home. You're not going to get groups together to run together. You guys responded, you pivoted, you provided a lot of connection to your teams. How did it go for you guys?
Yeah, I remember March 13th, we sent everybody home on our team and said, let's work remotely now for a while, still are. And then March 16th was when Governor Kelly announced schools were canceling in the state of Kansas. And so it was 2 days into our work from home situation that our program in Kansas was completely canceled. And then it wasn't too many days after that Missouri schools canceled as well. So figuring out our refund process for all of our families was a quick learning for us as an organization and how we serve our families and serve our girls. And then since then have been really looking at how do we continue to do our mission and do it to the safest capacity that our organization can uphold. So it's definitely been a lot of learning, a lot of trial and error, and a lot of challenge for us as an organization to continue to be of service to our community.
Right. Jessica, I know that Win for KC had a lot planned during the week of the Big 12 and having the women cancel, kind of blew that out of the water. But you also had big summer plans too that you had to worry about. Win for KC, their main program is a summer camp for girls. Tell me about how that started coming into your planning and how your team responded to that challenge.
Sure. I mean, I think we started having preliminary discussions pretty early on. I think we're sort of a wait and see game in March about how is this going to look potentially in a few months ahead. We started having contingency planning meetings with our site. So typically in a normal non-pandemic year, we're doing 3 different weeks of camp at 3 different locations throughout the month of June. So we started contacting all of the various, and they're all schools. So we contacted the various school contacts and basically asked them, what are your flexibility? What's your flexibility around contingency planning? Do you have dates on weekends that we can look at in the fall? Do you have alternate dates in the summer? Initially, we were looking at postponing and offering alternate dates for people to be able to transfer to. And as we got closer, it just became more and more clear that it was not going to be in our best interest to host the event, and nor did we feel like that it was the right thing to do to potentially put kids and then their extended families and communities and neighborhoods at risk by gathering, anywhere from 250 to 300 kids at a time. So, we made the decision essentially in May, by the first part of May, that we weren't going to do in-person camp and that we were going to pivot to a virtual experience. And I have to give a huge shout out to my team. They did some amazing work in a very short amount of time to pull together what would normally have been an in-person curriculum and pivot that to an online experience. So we basically pivoted what would have been a 4-day camp experience to a 4-week camp experience. So each day turned into a week's worth of content, and that was really focused around, being as flexible as we can for, knowing that each family, each household, each neighborhood, each municipality was handling COVID and what they were doing differently. So we wanted it to be as flexible for anyone who was going to participate as possible. And then we really tried to take a clear and direct sightline into, well, what about the kids who don't have access to technology? How do they have a cool summer experience that is benefiting from this curriculum in a flexible way too? So we basically took the approach of how do we make as much of the content that we're putting out accessible in tangible packets, in addition to the content that they can consume on a virtual basis too. So it was really a concerted effort, and like Gina said, it was a very quick trial and error of what worked, what didn't. I think we've learned a lot in the last 2 months in terms of how do you take an in-person event and pivot it to online. And I think, and I know Gina would attest to this too, like there's such a difference when we talk about trying to pivot something that's more of an adult focused sit down and consume event, like a gala or a fundraiser or a conference, versus an active camp or after school program where you're really trying to get kids engaged and they're trying to be physical. And so the lens through which you have to approach that kind of pivot is really, it forces us to think in really different ways.
Yeah, it's a challenge for sure. Gina, at what capacity do you feel like you're operating? How many girls are you engaged with, and how many girls would you normally be engaged with at this time? What kind of impact has it had on your participation?
Yeah, so this spring we were serving 3,138 girls and canceled the program for 3,138 girls. And that was over 200 sites, which predominantly were school sites. So we run after school programming and sessions. Practice. So it was a big hit to us as an organization. This year, we're serving the most girls we'd ever served in Kansas City, which was over 5,000 girls. So again, what Jess was sharing too is just trying to figure out, okay, now here's the reality of this pandemic. Here's what it means to be safe in a pandemic. Now, how do we continue to deliver on our mission and deliver what we have said to the community? This is what we're about. And this is what we're going to do for you. So for us, and we do a fall and a spring season, and for us really trying to figure out what fall looks like and doing more of a fluid model. And again, we're still waiting to work with our school partners to hear what their back to school safe plan looks like or safe return looks like, which will really impact if we're in person or if we're going to be a virtual model as well. We are trying to put together a camp for the last week in July at Operation Breakthrough, which is a great partner of ours, and another site in the community, Lexington, Missouri. And then in the first week of August, we'll look to host at Hy-Vee Arena. And then also at Northland location, and then also kind of South Kansas City. So we're looking to try to deliver something in person. Now, I will share we are taking into all precautions the safety that is needed in order to deliver. So all girls will have a mask, all volunteers will be wearing a mask, we'll have appropriate PPE. We'll keep in smaller cohorts, so no more than 10, which includes girls and adults, would be in a small group, and we wouldn't serve more than 50 at one site. So we're really trying to figure out how it is that we do deliver our work. And we've been surveying volunteers, we've been surveying parents and guardians in our community to really get their input on what they feel comfortable with. And it's been interesting feedback because the virtual piece, obviously trying to figure that out is definitely an option. And as just mentioned, like we're adults and we're, pivoting to this, and kiddos are too, with going back to school or going to school in a virtual space of Google Classroom and being on their screens all day. But for families, what feedback they're giving us is like, hey, my kid is sitting in front of a screen from 8 to 5. And the last thing they want to do is sit in front of a screen 2 days a week in order to be a part of Girls on the Run. So how can we be a part of the organization that what is special about it is that they get to have their friends. They get to have this social, emotional connection that they're not getting through a screen. So again, really trying to figure out how we serve our stakeholders, how we serve our constituents, and bring what's special to our community. And I will share too, with the pandemic, obviously academics have been impacted because kiddos haven't been in person, but especially and more importantly, the social emotional learning components, the peer-to-peer that you get from nervous system to nervous system has not been happening for our girls, for our kiddos in our community. And so again, the importance of, why we want to try to do what we can in person, mind you, with social distancing, with PPE, with trying to be as careful and cautious as possible. For us, it's important to consider, how we're working with our families, working with our constituents, because that's the feedback we're getting. Walking that line of responsibility and also service, and figuring out how we can play in both spaces.
We had a psychologist on earlier in our program today, and he was talking specifically about that and how kids process this kind of trauma, how this isolation and social distancing, keeping them away from their peers, that social interaction is so important for young kids. And your organization has been a testament to that, and the growth is obviously as a result of how good it is. Jessica, in terms of your relationship with the girls that you're working with. Are you sensing that Win for KC is able to help bridge the gap and meet the needs of some of these young girls that use Win as one of their primary ways of connecting with their friends and learning their sport?
I mean, yeah, I think the other piece that we've really tried to focus on in the space of, what a virtual camp looks like is really doubling down on our partnerships with community partners. So Gina mentioned Operation Breakthrough. We've had 160 kids go through our virtual camp because they're serving kids in person. We've been fortunate enough to secure scholarships to be able to cover the hard costs of what we need to be able to get the camp kits in people's hands, in those kids' hands. And then other community partners like Big Brothers Big Sisters and School of Vita Nova, PAL. So being able to take what we've been able to create and still provide an in-person experience where those kids are being able to gather. And the other pivot that we made too is that, typically, as you've mentioned, we're typically serving girls at in-person Camp Win. And we made the pivot when we switched to virtual to expand it to include boys, largely because we knew that just like the girls that we serve, the boys that are out there too are missing out on their opportunities. So it was like, how do we, make sure that, Susie Smith's brother that's at home too can participate in what the camp stuff that's happening. So, yeah,
Great.
I mean, I think we're doing what we can. I think there's still some hurdles for sure in terms of being able to. I feel for our friends at places like Operation Breakthrough who are like scrambling and drowning in terms of the number of kids they're serving this summer. So trying to be supportive as possible and not, yeah.
We're going to interview Mary Esham later this week, and I'm excited to kind of hear more about how this is challenging her organization. It's interesting how all three of our nonprofits look to connect with community partners and work with each other, help each other. We here at Share Waves, we're all about, finding ways to advance opportunities for kids to play sports, whether it's girls, boys. This week is all about raising money for programs just like yours. And if we raise a lot of money, if people give, like I hope they do, then we're going to be able to provide, resources to your organizations to help bring kids into activities and into programming that you're creating. So, I just encourage you to keep that up, and we're going to try to make a difference with what we're doing here. I want to turn the conversation, and this is kind of, we're going down towards the end, but obviously throughout the last month, COVID hasn't been the only story in the news with what has happened in Minnesota with George Floyd and losing his life. It has created this enormous amount of energy around changing our culture, looking at racial injustice, trying to find ways to reconcile some of the abhorrent behavior that has been present in our society and try to drive that out through conversation, through interactions. Have you broached the subject with any of the young athletes that you guys engage with? And is it a part of your hope that you get to include some of the conversations that are real about how we're going to heal and grow and learn and change? Just give me your thoughts, Jessica, on that, and let me know how things are going there, and then Gina, you can finish.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I wouldn't say that we've had direct conversations with the kids we've served, but we've been definitely having conversations at the leadership level and at the board level about how do we double down on the work that we've already been doing? How do we put extra energy and basically draft off of the momentum that has been happening over the last 4 to 6 weeks around this discussion? And to be totally transparent, I feel like it's calling all of us as leaders to the carpet on where we should and could be focusing our time and efforts. And there are, I think, opportunities across the board for definitely for our organization to be doing more. And so we're really trying to look at what are the things that we can enact now that are actions that are tangible and that deliver results in a quick way. that are what I would call low-hanging fruit, but then what are the systemic things that we can be doing and how we shift so that representation is equitable and that opportunity is equitable. And I think, that's at the core of Win for Casey's mission, is how do girls, every girl, get an opportunity to play sports. And when we talk about every girl, we mean every girl. And so I think it's really us holding each other as leaders and our board members holding us accountable to what we're doing. And that has to be a dedicated part of discussion, and should have been before if it wasn't already, but definitely will be now.
That's awesome. Gina, some crucial conversations with your group?
Yeah, and one of the core values for Girls on the Run is we stand up for ourselves and we stand up for others, and really highlighting what that means for us as a group, as part of the community, as the girls that we're serving, our volunteers that are part of facilitating this program, us as an internal team, our board. It has definitely been something we've been discussing more. And highlighting what is special about our program, how we are serving every girl, and our intention to make sure that every girl has access and equity in order to work through any barriers in order to be a part of the program. Something actually Jess and I were just talking about on Friday, sports unite us. They are something that creates a playing field for everybody to be a part of, to participate in. And so how are we inviting everybody in, all girls, for us as an organization? How are we inviting them in to be a part of that? So we continue to see advocacy in our girls, and it's actually been really inspiring to see the youth step up and use their voices, and how we continue to honor that. We're still continuing to work hard as we pivot into what fall looks like, and making sure that we provide access to all girls to continue to participate into whatever this new fluid model of delivering our program looks like.
The big thing for me through this whole thing has been that this access that I have, that my kids have, it's privilege. It is part and parcel of the privilege that I've grown up with. And I don't know what life is like without this type of privilege. It is something that I'm just really settling in on, listening, trying to understand more. And it sounds like, you guys just so beautifully put it, that we want to get as many people, as many kids involved in sports as possible. Our missions are all very, very similar. And so I look forward to taking this on with you guys, working together in the future, driving home this idea that the haves and the have-nots need to go away. When everyone needs to have a level playing field, and access needs to be universal, especially to the types of sports that we're talking about, where really it takes a good pair of running shoes and somebody out there encouraging you just to get going, to run together. And it just takes a powerful coach to impact a young girl, to teach her what it means to play hard and work hard for a goal, and to achieve something as a team, greater than themselves. And both Win for KC and Girls on the Run exemplify those things. I'm proud that I know you both. I use you both as guides as I work towards becoming a better executive director of a foundation that has youth sports as part of its mission. And I just encourage you to continue to look to ShareWaves as a partner that can help amplify your message, tell your story clearly, and really encourage your donor base to give more so that we can get more done. So thank you so much for being a part of Ready to Play Week.